Hello, and welcome to another episode of ChargersCast. I'm your host, Kirk Brewer. I've been a fan of the Chargers for over 40 years, and with 40 years of Chargers fandom experience, my goal here at ChargersCast is to bring you guys a unique perspective on our beloved Los Angeles, formerly San Diego Chargers. The ChargersCast podcast is by fans, for fans, and so it's for everybody out there. And joining me today, and they've been joining me all season, are my regular buddies, friends to the podcast, and diehard Chargers fans just like myself. We've got Brennan from Chargers District and Andrew from Bolt Casa. Welcome, guys. I hope you're doing okay. Your spirits are relatively okay considering how last night's game went. Right? I know. It's been a while since we've had to, usually we've been toasting wins, but I guess this week we will somewhat drown our sorrows. How about that?
For the boys.
Cheers, gentlemen. Yes, for the boys. We have a lot to talk about despite it being a loss. Sometimes I think there's even more to talk about in a loss than there is in a win. So we're going to talk about the Monday night loss, week 12 to the Baltimore Ravens, the Harbaugh Bowl. And then we're going to get into week 13, which is a road game. We're heading back east and playing the Atlanta Falcons. So let's jump into this Ravens game, guys. We took the loss 23-30. I think that score kind of reflects how that game went. I think sometimes the score is not indicative of how the game went, but I think that score pretty much sums it up. This was the second game in what we've kind of deemed a tough four-game stretch for the Chargers. The first one was the previous week against the Bengals. We pulled that one out after they came back on us and tied it up. This one we weren't able to pull out, and this was by far, I would even put them, not just statistically, but talent-wise, above the Bengals. As far as the dynamics of their offense, Lamar adds just a whole nother dimension to the offense, even though he didn't, when you look at the numbers, he didn't use his legs this game. He had 15 yards, I think, running, and 10 of those were on that first touchdown in the first quarter. But it was a good test for us. And so, I think despite the loss, as far as just kind of talking, overview like we do kind of to start the pod, while we took the loss, I think it showed us, if we want to get to the heights we want to get to, we're going to take some of these games against quality opponents. And then we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and go back and go, okay, we're not quite ready to take on the big boys, but we're close, and here's where we tweak, right? We did that against Pittsburgh. I don't know if we had to do too much of that against the Cardinals, even though we got out physical, but I think we stepped up our physicality after that game, and we've gone on this winning streak. I thought it was a pretty, competitive game. It was an even game, at least for the first three quarters, right? We came out to a 10-0 lead. It was 13-14. We were losing by 1 point at half. At the end of the third quarter, 16-17. We were losing by 1 point. Time of possession was super even. It was within a few seconds. And no team had turnovers. So, I mean, you look at those things and you go, this is a pretty even game. Okay, we could stand toe-to-toe with these guys. It was where the fourth quarter kind of came around and things unraveled a little bit for us. We talked pre-pod. Derrick Henry ran kind of a little wild on us. Our run defense was not up to snuff for the caliber of their run offense. Our own line broke down a little bit. It's one of the things I would kind of summarize there late in the game. Justin, I think he took several sacks there late in the game. Losing J.K. in the second quarter changed the dynamic of the game for us, I think. He had like 40 yards before he went out. So if you take that and double that at least through the end of the game, that makes a difference on how they're playing us because JK's keeping them honest. Gus had a couple runs, but not like JK, unfortunately. And then the last thing I'll mention here, and then you guys dive in, I thought there were a couple key plays that turned this game in their favor. The first being that Ravens 4th and 1 from their own 16 in the second quarter. We stopped them. We stopped Derrick Henry. It was 3rd and 1, and we stopped Derrick Henry. And then they called the timeout and they went for it on 4th and 1 and they got it. That was the one where Mark Andrews was under center and did the sneak from their own 16. Talk about a ballsy call. I don't know if John Harbaugh makes that call against just anybody versus his brother. Maybe we'll never know. But I think there was a little bit of brotherly love involved in that call. That long touchdown run in the 4th quarter was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back by, what's his name? Justin Hill. And then Q's drop on 3rd down. I mean, that crossing pattern, he was going to at least get 40 yards on that damn thing if he caught it. So that's kind of my big overall summary. A few key plays turned the game. It was kind of a toe-to-toe matchup for 3 quarters, and then they kind of separated themselves there in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of key points that I was actually going to mention. Number one is I really like playing these tough opponents because, number one, it's going to show us what we can improve on, and we are not going to be able to become Super Bowl contenders if we don't go toe-to-toe with some of these heavy-hitting teams because it's not going to show what we can do if we just have a washed schedule. Number two, overall, I thought it was very, very close. Throughout the whole game, it was very close, but it got away with us at the end of the game, 4th quarter, so that was a bummer. I think we still need to play 4 quarters of football. I think that's a must for us. And then the last thing is I feel like this game in particular, I don't know why, in my opinion, it showed us a lot of the holes in specific positions we need. So, for instance, we definitely need a center that showed immensely. People sometimes don't agree. I know I said our receiving core was solid, but yesterday it showed we need an elite receiver or someone we can pick in the draft that can complement Ladd too, just to give us a little more of a consistency. And then number 3, the cornerbacks are playing great, but Christian Fulton didn't play too good, and with some of the injuries, I think that showed that we're probably going to need to look for another cornerback in the market as well, especially if we don't re-sign Asante.
Yeah, man, those are all good points. Yeah, for sure. What about you, Andrew? What were your thoughts?
I would just say the overall takeaway from the game was a demoralizing demeanor. I felt like you can't let the Ravens, Derrick Henry had 140 rushing yards. You can't let Derrick Henry have 140 rushing yards and Lamar Jackson have time in the pocket to do what he does, and that's exactly what they had. They didn't have a perfect game, but they dang near did, and they didn't give as much to work with. So it's really hard to beat a football team like that. They pretty much out-physicaled us. They went, pretty much where we had to go toe-to-toe with them, they edged us out. And then when it came to those 4th down conversions, it really just kept taking the wind out of our sails. And that was a demoralizing aspect to this game because it was not 1, it was not 2. They had many of those 4th down conversions. And then Minter would make adjustments. We'd stack the box. We would bring Derwin in, play different fronts, and then they would just have a perfect play call on offense. And it's that just shows how unique they are and just the options that they have as an offense. And it's just really hard to deal with. So this was a game that when you talk about riding momentum, it was really hard for us to ride anything. And I'm not upset or mad. Obviously I want the boys to win. I think we showed up. We have good coaching. we're dealing with, one of the best offenses, possibly. I think they're on, like, I read something that they're on pace to they're on pace to have the record for the most yards per play.
Yeah.
Like, they're about to get that. So it's a really difficult thing to play with.
Yeah, well, they have to sustain it for the rest of the season, which isn't going to be easy. But it was seven or more yards per play, and I think at the end of yesterday's game, they were saying they were at 7.01 yards per play, and so yeah, they're tearing it up. Will they be able to sustain that for the remaining games of the season? We'll find out. I came away a little different, Andrew. At first, anytime the Chargers lose, my initial, I'm bummed and I'm emotionally connected. I'm a fan, right? And I have been a fan for a long time. So I'm really emotionally connected. But once kind of the disappointment and the adrenaline as a fan, you're in there with it, right? I mean, your adrenaline's pumping. You're like, okay, that sucked. Okay, but we'll get it back or whatever. Once all that kind of subsides, and I step back and assess the game, assess where we're at in the season, and then I'm thinking about how I want to. This is one of the things that's really cool about doing the pod, and I suspect you guys are experiencing this too, which is, oh, well, now I need to actually pull my thoughts together and verbalize this versus just keeping it internal as a fan. And I came away as I'm putting together my notes for today's pod. I'm like, there's positives out of this loss. Yeah, it's a loss, and you like to win every game. But if we're going to go where we need to go, we're still a work in progress. We've been talking about that like every week. We're still a work in progress. And if you're going to be the best, you got to beat the best. And we're still a work in progress. So what's the next best thing is, well, go up against the best, find out where you need to improve, and then go back to the drawing board and work on those things. So we're not in the playoffs yet. The ones that really matter, as long as we get to the big show, the ones that really matter is when we're in the playoffs, right? So right now it's looking like we're going to face either the Steelers or the Ravens. If things kind of continue as they're going, we're going to face one of those two teams in the wild card first round. And so turns out we've split the AFC North, right? We beat the Bengals, we beat the Browns, we lost to the Steelers, we lost to the Ravens. Well, right now it's looking like we're going to face either Steelers or Ravens. So we've gone up against them. We've kind of seen how we match up. Jim's a smart guy. So now he goes back to the drawing board and does his mad science and his diabolical shit and turns G-Row and Mentor loose. And by the way, I'm sure you guys saw on the telecast, G-Row, when Q dropped that ball, right? They turned to G-Row in the booth and he's like, shit, all I can do is call the play. I can't go out there and run the play too. But I came away optimistic that in the grand scheme of things where we want to go, this is another stepping stone to get there. Would have been cool to get the win and still learn. But, we're 7-4. We could be worse. And I agree with you, Brennan. These games are highlighting our roster's still a work in progress. They weren't going to solve the entire roster in year one of coming on board. They've done a really good job of improving it and complementing it. But yeah, we need a true number one. It doesn't have to be the most elite. No, it doesn't have to be Megatron. That'd be cool, but we need a true number one. And then Ladd is turning out to be a steal. That kid has hands that QJ only wishes he had. Ladd doesn't miss much. And then QJ and Palmer, right now, I'd say they're kind of average dudes, and Herbert's a stud. They're kind of average dudes. They have their moments, but it's not week in and week out where they really separate themselves from anybody. So I agree. And then we need a thumper to go, well, maybe Junior Colson will turn out to be that guy. But we saw unequivocally, the absence of Denzel Perryman made a huge difference. Okay, Denzel would have been coming downhill and fighting Derrick Henry on every one of those runs. Henry would have gotten his, but Denzel would have gotten his too. He's been a hammer since day one coming into the league, and those other guys, Neiman and what's the other dude who was filling in?
Troy Dye.
Troy Dye, they're just not Denzel. They're just not. And Henley couldn't do it all himself, even though he was trying. So let's drill down a little bit on both sides of the ball. On offense, we only had 285 total yards, 218 passing, 83 rushing. Like I said, JK had 40 before he went out late in the second quarter. To me, I think our O-line broke down, and I think it really goes to the interior line. We need work there. We do. And it starts at center and works its way out. You can make up for a bad guard if you got a great center, but you can't make up for a great center. You got to have a great center. Everything starts. Everybody talks about the quarterback touches the ball every play. Well, guess who touches the ball before the quarterback, right? So you got to have that center. We miss Lindsley immensely. I hope he's doing good and he's super healthy and everything. But Bozeman's doing what he's doing the best he can do. And then, we didn't convert enough third downs on offense. We had a couple sustained drives. Did you guys realize in the third quarter there were only 2 possessions in the third quarter? When we rolled into the fourth quarter, I was like, holy crap, the third quarter went by really quick. Well, we had 1 possession and Baltimore had 1 possession. Each of those possessions, like 11 or 12 plays, and each of us kicked a field goal. That was it. That was the third quarter. So we didn't have enough of those where remember we talked about, let's keep Lamar over on the freaking sidelines and keep Derrick Henry over on the sidelines. And we didn't keep him on the sidelines enough. It was 50-50. We got 30 minutes of time of possession. They got 30 minutes time of possession. And then, when are we going to see DJ Chark? That was one of my last notes, is especially Q dropping like 3 balls in a row. When are we going to see DJ Chark? Maybe we don't see him the whole season. I don't know, but Jim isn't talking about him, and Popper ain't asking about him. So I don't know, you guys. What were your thoughts on our offense?
I'd be happy to jump in on a couple notes here.
Yeah, please.
So key moments were missed, and that definitely kept us out of the game.
Yeah.
Will Disley had a career high in receptions and receiving yards. We handed the ball off 3 times in the second half. 3 times. And one of those handoffs was a 1-yard rush. The 1-yard rushing touchdown was from Gus. Think about that. Think about that, and overall how that plays a toll and how much pressure Justin had throwing the ball in the second half. We had 61 rushing yards in the first quarter, and we finished the game with 83 rushing yards. To me, it just does not seem like the Chargers have a lot of confidence in the running game without JK. And it can be, and you can also say they don't feel comfortable without having Gus with JK as well, like that 1-2 punch. It's definitely interesting that they got away from the run so much in the second half. Like when I read that they had 3 handoffs in the second half, that is just so much to put on Justin's plate. And like you guys brought up the receivers earlier, heck yeah. I mean, that's the thing that I see is I think Justin can put the ball anywhere on the field, but these players, outside of Ladd, just don't necessarily have that it factor to kind of complement or assist that to make those big plays. And like I was saying, like when it comes to the offense, we just kind of did not capitalize on those big moments, and that really just kind of put us in a blunder throughout the second half of that game.
Yeah, I didn't realize we only had 3 rushing attempts the whole second quarter.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, and usually when that happens, right, I'm thinking about this as you're saying it, because I didn't realize that as I went through all the stats for the pod, and I'm thinking, okay, well, we weren't down. We weren't down until the fourth quarter, right? We ended the third quarter 16-17. We were only down 1 point. And like I mentioned earlier, did you guys realize each team only had one possession in the third quarter, right? So it wasn't like we were down yet, where we were 2 touchdowns down and we had to throw it. So I think that fact that we went away from the run had to do with JK. It had to do with a lack of confidence in Gus, which I'm a little surprised at. But Gus, he was injured in training camp, if you remember, and then he was injured early in the season. He hasn't gotten that many carries. When JK went down, I was a little bummed that Kamani wasn't up, but Kamani was inactive. It would have been nice to have had Kamani and at least have a 1-2 punch with Kamani. We'll see what happens with JK in the coming week. But, yeah, we're not the team except on maybe rare occasions where we can get away from the run. And up until they scored that first touchdown in the fourth quarter, there was no reason for us to abandon the run.
I think that really just – you think about Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh, they want to run the football. I think this really points out the lack of belief that they have on the interior offensive line. That's all I can really come up with.
Well, maybe too. You remember the Ravens were really poor against the pass, and they were number 2 against the run. And so there might have been some of that playing into it, where they're like, okay, we're going to try and take advantage of their weakness. Well, that didn't work out so well for us. You got anything to add on offense there, Brennan? Otherwise, we'll roll over to the D. There's plenty to talk about there too, man.
Yeah, I think the main thing was the drops. I think that slowed, like Andrew was saying, we couldn't have any momentum, and that wasn't making it better by any means. I feel like Justin always makes some sort of crazy play every single game, and he was on the money. There was only one play where it would have been nice if he made that overthrow into Josh Palmer, but he carries our team, and he's not perfect, so that's kind of an X out. But he's always playing amazing football, so that's always good to have an elite quarterback that is going to ball every game. I was just watching the TV and being like, damn, Justin is just so good. And I just always say it, but it never gets old saying it. And then, it's very interesting, Andrew, because watching it live, it didn't seem like we abandoned the run too much. But it did seem like we were throwing a lot, but it didn't seem like we had 3 carries in the second half. So that's, like you said too, Kirk, that it has to have been JK. So that's very interesting to see what we're going to do if possibly JK doesn't play next weekend. Can Kamani play? Is he going to get elevated, or are they going to try to do a 1-2 punch with Edwards and Haskins? It's going to be interesting to see.
Before we get into the defense, is there anything that you guys want to add to the DJ Shark conversation? Do you guys, either one of you, let's say he is available next week, are either one of you saying, well, let's just say, are you putting him on the field? And if you are, who's coming out? Because someone has to come out. And the issue with that is 2 of our receivers are kick returners. And that's, obviously Dede. And then who's the other one? Is it, it's Rager. So what's your guys' opinion on that?
Yeah, I was going to talk about that as we got in the Atlanta game, but since you brought it up now, let's, considering Q's game this week, Q's been coming along this season, so I don't want, one game, I don't want to throw him under the bus for one game, but that third down conversion is kind of inexcusable. I mean, you paid a lot of money to catch a football for a living. Catch the ball, hit him right in the hands, man. In the stride, hit him in the hands. So we had DJ. DJ's out of his window. He's eligible, all of that stuff. We had him inactive this week. So the question I was going to ask for you guys, you kind of beat me to it, Andrew, is, yeah. So, no, you're good, brother. Great minds thinking alike. Do we pull Q? Because I'm thinking if we're pulling anybody, we're pulling Q. Do we pull Q and go with DJ and give Q a week on the bench to maybe kind of think about it? or do we just keep rolling the way we're rolling? I don't know the answer to that. There are people who make millions of dollars more than me who get paid to make those decisions. And Joe, if you want to bring somebody in as assistant, it's my dream job to be like an assistant. So at that point, I'd definitely give you my 2 cents for the paycheck. What do you think, Brennan?
I think the most realistic thing that we're gonna do is, I think we should go for it. I think it doesn't hurt. Might as well let him do his thing. If Justin Herbert can let it fly, and worst case scenario, he doesn't perform or he just doesn't get any targets. But I think it's going to be Jalen Reagor, realistically, that they drop based off the fact that QJ, it's one game, in my opinion, against a good Ravens defense. No matter if Roquan Smith wasn't in, they were giving it to us all game. I think that's still their guy. They drafted him for a reason. I think they might nail him at practice, but I don't think they bench him by any means. But I think it'd be Reagor, since he's always in and out of the practice squad and then being elevated, then down again. And that's what I realistically think we will do. And I do think DJ Chark's going to get some opportunities. Maybe not next game, but in the game after that.
Who do they, if they did take Reagor out, who are they putting back with Double D?
I think it's Haskins.
It could be Haskins, and I know lads we need to protect that guy like we protect Justin Herbert, but he has fielded a couple punts. He has, I don't know about the kick returns, but he's fielded a couple punts. So he could do it. I know it's a risk to see if he's getting injured, but if you just need someone to wave it off and fair catch, like you guys were saying earlier, he has hands, he can catch that ball, and I've seen him field punts, and he did a perfect job. So I think that's who they'd go for if they didn't care about taking the risk of him getting injured.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. I know he, when Darius was out, it was a game or two Darius was out, they did have Ladd back fielding punts. He didn't return a single one. He fair caught every single one of them, which was smart. But I don't remember, did they have him on kickoff too? Or did they have somebody else on kickoff? I'd have to go back and look. Yeah. Interesting question. And that's the fun part of, running a football team, is fitting these pieces together, and, week to week that can change depending on the 53-man roster and the opponent and injuries and who's performing. Yeah, that's an interesting job. I wonder what Harbs and Ortiz were talking about today after the game. Yeah, let's roll over to the defense. It wasn't our best performance, to say the least. We allowed 389 total yards, 177 yards passing, 212 yards rushing. Most of that to Derrick Henry, with the exception of that one long run by Justice Hill, which was kind of the one play, I think, that kind of was the backbreaker for us, because it really extended that deficit. Being one touchdown with Herbert, I don't get that concerned, because he can pick that up in about 20 seconds if he needed to. So I try not to get too concerned, but you start getting two scores, especially two touchdowns behind. Now, guess what? The defensive line's teeing off against your offensive line, and Justin's having to, duck like he was having to do. The first half, we allowed 14 points. And again, it was 13-14. We were kind of duking it out. Second half, we only allowed 16 points. So it wasn't a huge let-off between the two halves, relatively speaking. I think the difference was just how stout we were in that fourth quarter, because they scored two touchdowns on us in the fourth quarter. 55%, over 55%, it was almost 56% third down conversions we allowed the Ravens. And like you guys mentioned earlier, oh, and by the way, there was like 3 in a row 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 10 when the game was on the line. And I'm literally cussing at the TV. I'm like, come on, man. Third time's a charm. And then there's either a stupid penalty or something. But 3 for 3 on 4th down. We let them get all of those 4th down conversions. And Henry busted off that long one on one of them. It was like a 27-yard gain. Our run defense was it hasn't been great, but it's been good enough. We got exposed a little bit more this game. And like I said earlier, we really missed Denzel in the middle. That's kind of my take on the defense is you don't know what you got until it's gone. Denzel's been a huge contributor just in those run fits. And then, of course, T.R. Tart and Poona Ford, allow them to do that. But there's a reason Dye and Neiman are backups. Not to slight them in the slightest because they fill a valuable role for our team. But there was a hole without Denzel there, and it got exploited.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know the exact number, but it was about 5 to 6 straight possessions where they scored. I think that you're not going to win a football game if you let them score 5 times in a row. That means you're going to have to score 5 times in a row if you want to keep it a game. And that's hard to do, especially with our offense, because it's definitely not like the Ravens. So I think that was a big factor that separated us teams, especially on our defense. Those were killer. I was cussing out the TV too. I was actually saying 3rd time's a charm. I said the same thing, and I was like, I think I'm feeling good. There's no way that our defense is going to do this, and they did it. And then 4th down. 4th and 1. Okay, 1's fine. Okay, 2, I don't think they're going to get it. Okay, they do. Number 3, we can't let them get it, and they get it again. So that was just very frustrating, and I think that was the biggest takeaway is we need to take those opportunities and stuff them, because that would have been that could have been 3 different times we could have scored. So just think of it in that perspective. Could have been a very lopsided game if we just made those 4th down and 3rd down stops.
Well, especially that one deep in their territory. Even when they made it, I'm like, okay, they're still deep in their territory. Again, bend, don't break. But they go down and score a touchdown on the damn thing. Our team has been pretty good about getting off on 3rd down, getting off the field. This was one of those games where,
Yeah, those drives were pretty demoralizing, but shout out to Elijah Molden on that play where Lamar rolled out to the left side and he stayed disciplined when Lamar's reading him to see what he's going to do. And the idea is Elijah would pursue him and he would have got that touchdown. He stayed disciplined, was able to deflect it. There was another situation where Derrick Henry ran to the outside. Hanley got there and Tarheeb got there. They just weren't able to make the tackle. But I guess what I'm just trying to say is, the guys found themselves in position sometimes in this game. We're just playing a really tough team. And then I'll add the Mark Andrews touchdown. Incredible coverage and an even better catch, right? That's the thing. That's the thing that stood out in this game is the defense played all right. It's just we're playing a really good offense, and they're able to do some incredible things. And that was the big difference. You point out like those big plays that were made, they had it, and we did not have it. But I thought I was really impressed with the boys being in position when they could. It's just, I get it. When you're playing Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens, sometimes you're going to get bested the same way that Rashawn Slater got bested by the Browns' defensive end, Myles Garrett. It's going to happen in this league when you're playing some of the best players in the NFL.
Yeah. And we kept Lamar in check. as far as his legs go. In fact, passing, he only had 177 passing yards, but he only got like 15 running yards. So, that aspect, we did a pretty good job. In fact, I think it was Tarheeb who tackled Lamar. He was coming out to the right and tried to put a move on Tarheeb, and he actually tackled him either for a loss or just right at the line of scrimmage. I mean, we did a pretty good job keeping Lamar in check. There was one play where we were really out of position, that play to Flowers over the middle where he caught it and then took off running. And there's you see 6 Chargers and those stinking Navies chasing the kid, but they were all out of position. And so 6 of us are chasing him, and he ended up running for 35 yards. That was the only play where we were totally out of position on, and we got caught with our pants down. Derrick Henry, he's going to run over people, and he did. And he stiff-armed a bunch of people and took 2 or 3 people to bring him down. And, I really appreciate Khalil Mack's post-game, because he was pissed. And he was ready to suit him up and go back out and play another 4 quarters. He's like, oh, no, I can't wait to play these guys again. This is not that difficult. I'm like, all right, brother, I appreciate it. He's like, and a reporter kept trying to get him to, are you insulting Derrick Henry? He's like, no, not at all. He's one of the best there is, but this isn't that hard. If he's coming on my side, I promise you I'm tackling him. And he just left it at that. So basically, kind of maybe more throwing some of his guys under the bus, going, he came to your side and you guys, weren't able to tackle him. But this is Dayon's first season, right? I don't think he's ever seen a Derrick Henry before in the NFL. So there's some learning experience for some of our young guys. So it was a good game for that.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because the commentators were saying this too. Rookie Tarheeb still really felt, I feel like this was one of his welcomes to the league, because there was one play where he was the only one in that vicinity, and right in front of him was full steam ahead Derrick Henry, and all he did was just put his head down and wrap his leg. He got the tackle, but he wrapped his leg and just prayed for it. So like you said, that was good insight, because I feel like a lot of them learned, okay, this is some big boy football that we're playing right now, and we're going to have to learn how to play with these guys. And the last thing I wanted to mention on the defense, it was very interesting to see the red zone and all of that, because they definitely got the best of us, but I saw that they have the number 1 red zone offense. They've scored about 35 out of 45 touchdowns. But we have the number 2 red zone defense. So it was very interesting to see, because I was very curious to see how many times they were actually going to get in the end zone, which we saw how that played out. But it's very interesting to see. It was the number 1 versus number 2 going at each other. So
yeah. And as we kind of put a bow on this game and move on to the future, which the players have to do too, and we have to do it as fans. We can't sit and linger. One other thing I'll mention for everybody out there that's watching this, especially as the Harbaugh Bowl and all the hype, don't lose sight of the fact, I believe John Harbaugh, he's either the number 1 or the number 2 longest tenured head coach, and it's either he's just ahead of or just behind Mike Tomlin. Okay, so it's he and Tomlin are the longest tenured head coaches in the NFL. So, and then, that organization between Ozzie Newsome and now DaCosta, they're well established. Their culture, how they play, their schemes. We are brand new to this. This is our first half a season. It kind of showed a little bit, but we went toe-to-toe with these guys. This was a tough game, and it was not a blowout game. It was a 1-point game for 3 quarters, and it just kind of at the end there, they distanced themselves from us. So I think there's a lot to be optimistic about in this. Jim's going about doing what Jim does, the way Jim does it, and it's always worked. I suspect it's already working for us. But to think that we're going to go up against the Ravens, and not run the risk of losing? Is there any of us when we made our predictions last week, besides you, Brennan, you and I, Andrew, or anybody out there, is there any of us who thought for sure this was 100% slam dunk that the Chargers are going to win that game? My prediction was the Chargers were going to win, but I knew it wasn't 100%. In fact, we talked about it in the pod that this is our toughest match so far, coming off the previous toughest match against the Bengals, right? I'm assuming you were the same way, Andrew. You knew that, right? This is a tough match for us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, even prior to the season, I marked this down as a loss, but I was looking at the momentum that this team was riding, the defense that they were playing with, and Justin was on fire. Like I said earlier, they played a darn near perfect game. They gave us nothing, and it came down to executing just those little things. They got it every time, and we didn't get it, not much of any. So that made the difference in that game. So, I mean, I think the Chargers are a great team. I think when it comes down to beating those teams that we know we can beat, we're going to continue to do so. And it's up to us to prove how we're going to play against these really high-level teams. And, we got bested against the Ravens. Moving on, onward and forward.
Yeah, shouldn't hang your heads. That's for sure. The team shouldn't hang their heads. As fans, we shouldn't hang our heads. The difference between winning and losing in the NFL is really small. And there were a couple plays, if they'd gone differently, we may have come out on top in this game. Oh, and one call in the end zone that was a PI that they didn't call a PI.
Yeah, that was the other thing is some of those.
But then they picked that up.
Yeah, that was the other thing is some of those flags, they just really didn't go our way, and I was sitting there. I'm the first to be like, yeah, they didn't our flag, but there was a lot of those that we needed and we should have had.
There were a couple. And
that's how it goes.
Yeah, and so it doesn't do any good to complain about it. You just need to win by enough that you don't have those determine the outcome of the game. And I know you mentioned, Brendan, this is why I kind of excluded you. You're like, man, I almost picked the Ravens over the Chargers last week, which, I totally get it, right? I mean, it's a really good team, and they were one play away, one fumble away from going to the Super Bowl last year. Flowers going into the end zone, had that ball knocked out. Otherwise, they would have won that game, and they would have beat the Chiefs and gone to the freaking Super Bowl, which I wish they would have done, by the way.
Yeah, so how I saw it was I was like so nervous because we're a rebuilding team. We went 5-12, and we're still trying to find the pieces to have a complete team where, like you said, they're one play away going to the Super Bowl, and they really haven't stopped their momentum. Yeah, they've had a couple weird losses, but they're a complete team, and I was just nervous because Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, they're one of the best duos, if not the best duo in the NFL right now, offensive-wise, especially in the backfield. But so, yeah, it is what it is. We can't beat ourselves up for it because that's a really good team. The Cardinals lost, yeah, we could probably, but this loss definitely not. That was a really hard, difficult team that we played, and like you were saying the whole podcast, Kirk, we were super, super close. We're only 1 point until like the fourth quarter. So it was a hard-fought battle. Bolt fans can't get too mad about this loss. I think it was a great learning experience for us.
Yeah, and I mean, not this weekend coming up. Great transition to the Week 13 game in Atlanta. But the following week and then 2 weeks after that, we've got two more primetime games. So, there's a reason we're playing in primetime. And part of that's just Jim, because Jim is Jim. But part of it is the team. We've already been flexed there once and flexed there again because it's an entertaining team and we're winning, right? They want to put those winning teams on primetime. So that's always a good indicator that you're doing something right if you start getting flexed into primetime. So just a brief mention of special teams. We don't need to belabor it. Just keep doing what you guys are doing. Dicker was, 3 for 3, 2 of them plus 50. Didn't miss any extra points. And Darius and JK, they did their thing. In fact, Darius had a nice little return, got us some decent field position when we needed it. So, special teams, you guys keep doing you, man. We love you guys. And Dicker, you're the man, dude. He's money. Atlanta, guess what? Those guys are coming off a bye. I think this is the second team we will be facing coming off a bye this season. I'm never a big fan of that, personally, because they get all rested up and they can game plan you for 2 weeks. But combine that with, it's a short week for us, having played Monday Night Football. And, we're flying back east, and we're going to be playing at 10 o'clock California time, which their body clocks aren't used to doing. So you want to kind of just stack some preliminary, it's not quite in your favor. Yeah, we're going to be a short week, long travel back east. So it is what it is. Can't complain about it, but it is what it is. We're going to be going against, Kirk Cousins, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Darnell Mooney. Pretty talented offense. They got the tools. Their offense is 8th overall in yards per game, 5th in passing, 14th in rushing. By the way, the Chargers are 21st ranked offense by yards per game. But just to put that in perspective, the Chiefs, who are 10-1, are 14th, and the Bills, who are, 9-2, 10-2, they're right there with them. They're 13th. Okay, so yards per game, I think we all agree, isn't always the best measure. Their defense, 25th overall yards allowed per game. They're 26th against the pass, 19th against the run. Just again, put it in perspective, the Chargers are 13th, same category. So they allow they're the 25th points against. We're still the first, by the way, but that number is now 15.9 points per game, as we've had 2 games that scored 30 plus on us. But we're still the first ranked by points allowed, first ranked defense, and points scored. Atlanta's 17th. Guess who's number 18? Points per game. Offense. The Los Angeles Chargers. Okay. So I think there's, despite the initial, hey, we got a short week and we've got to travel back east and all that, that may actually help us. If the boys, it sounded like they got a kind of a bitter taste in their mouth off this Monday night game, the sooner they can hit the field might actually be better, other than JK maybe healing up. We'll be waiting to hear what's going on with JK. But otherwise, it sounds like a game we're going to match up pretty well, strength against strength. And, our offense is going to match up good against their defense. I don't know. What are you guys' initial observations about the Falcons? I thought at the beginning of the season, it's just the lowly Falcons. No, actually, they're very competitive this season, and Kirk Cousins is playing like Kirk Cousins normally plays.
Yeah, they started off pretty hot, but they're trajecting down. Prior to the bye week, they're on a 2-game losing streak. They lost to the Saints, and then they got manhandled by the Broncos. When you look at the box score against the Broncos, Denver put up 38 points, and just each quarter just kind of took it to them. And their defense held Atlanta to 0 points in the second half. And they only got 2 field goals in that game. Bo Nix threw for over 300 yards against the Atlanta Falcons. So, kind of what I was saying earlier, like I expect the Chargers defense to bounce back, especially against the teams that we should beat. And when I look at the Atlanta Falcons, I think this is a team that we should beat. I'm not taking them lightly. I don't think this is going to be easy. This is the NFL. We have this conversation weekly, right?
Week in, week out.
They've got weapons, but I expect our boys to show up. And whether it's QJ or Shark, I think that they're going to handle business. We're going to make the adjustments, and this is a game that we can win. If Bo Nix can show up and throw for 300 yards against this defense, I got a pretty good feeling that Justin Herbert can do some damage, and he can really mix it up and find a way to help this team to victory. So I feel really good about going to Atlanta, even if it's an away game. Excited for this one.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, their defense is 25th yards allowed, 26th against the pass, 19th against the run, and then Bo Nix tore him up.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't want to take anything away from Bo Nix. He's been playing some pretty good ball. Hate to see that. I wish he was horrible, but it looks like we're going to have some games against this kid for some years to come, at least till his rookie contract's up and they decide whether to re-sign him or not for big bucks. But in the meantime, we're going to be playing the kid for 4 more years after this season. So yeah, I think we should be able to go there and take care of business. But any given Sunday, man.
Yeah, I'll say I'm really confident.
Okay.
I think, I'm a big matchup guy. I know there's a lot of stuff go against it, meaning like Steelers beat us, we beat the Browns, but then the Browns beat the Steelers, so it's kind of like a whole triangle. However, I feel like we pretty easily beat the Saints and even the Broncos, no matter what the Broncos did in the second half. It was pretty coasting games, I feel like. I might be overconfident, but I think it's going to be a really good game. He's been on fire, but if Bo Nix can do that and their defense can do that, our defense can do that, and our offense can do that. Especially if you think about the Saints game, they let the Saints offense beat them. So I just think, I don't know, I think there's a lot of holes in their game, and I think we're angry. I think every single player wants to bounce back. I think Jesse Minter wants to have lights out defense next game because he's had 2 30-plus games, 30-point games, and I think Jim Harbaugh wants a good bounce back because if we do lose this game, we'll be 7-5, but that's getting a little scary, a little tight. So I definitely think this is a much needed game because if we go 8-4, that'd be really awesome. But I'm pretty, knock on wood, but I'm pretty confident in this game. I think we're gonna do some pretty cool things come this Sunday.
Yeah, we need to keep our lead over Denver as far as staying solidly in the wild card hunt because they're nipping at our heels. So keys to the game. What would you, Andrew? What would you consider our keys to the game on offense going up against these guys?
Well, it really, I want to say, obviously, I'm always going to go back to the run game. JK is so special. We see what this offense looks like and is comfortable with and through four quarters with JK. But with that looming in the air, Atlanta doesn't necessarily have the greatest pass rush. Like, it's crazy that a lot of people threw their hands in the air when they didn't go for an edge rusher in the draft. So they don't have much of a pass rush. And AJ Terrell is a good corner on the other side of the ball, but he doesn't seem to come up with picks, at least not this year. So, with not knowing what's going on with JK, I would say let's air it out to some extent. Go back to Q, build his confidence if he is the guy there. Get the passing game going for sure on these guys. Oh, and then I want to add, I just thought of this. Do you guys remember this was a little while back, but I posted a video of Drake London. He had an interview and he was talking about his welcome to the NFL. And his welcome to the NFL play was when Khalil Mack, he caught the pass and Khalil Mack walked up and just stripped it from him and kind of took it back for a few yards. So, let our presence be known on defense. Let's remind these guys again, we beat you last time, we'll beat you again. And this is not the Chargers you played last time. So yeah, I thought that was a funny one.
I like it. Brennan?
This is, I feel like, a little obvious one, but I think keeping Justin Herbert mobile, that's a big key to this game. I think game in and game out, we're noticing that when he has his legs, we are able to extend these drives and able to really keep the momentum in the drive going if he's mobile. Because if he's really good at escaping that pocket, he's very good to be mobile in the pocket. So if he can escape and run and just give us some more momentum, I think that would be good, especially if JK, if that's looming in the air and we can't get too much run game going. I think that will add more of a it will add just really good, like, how should I say this? It's going to add positive things to our offense, just widen our schemes a little more. And the second thing, I think we just need to play the very obvious but good old smash mouth football. I think our defense has to hit them as hard as they can, play like they just lost the Super Bowl. I think if we crush these guys, it's going to be a big statement game, no matter how they're performing, but it's showing that we can bounce back from a tough loss, regardless on how they're performing this year. But I think those are just two of my key things. I think if we just do what we have been doing the last 4 games, it's going to be pretty good.
I like the idea of just literally blowing them out. I think that would be awesome. We haven't had one of those this season. Herbie's super healthy now. Now, JK, I think, would be, if we're going to have a blowout, I think JK, my gut tells me JK would be part of that. I mean, he really is a special running back. Haven't seen too many like him in a while. So it'll be interesting to find out this week if we get JK back. And if not, I suspect if he's not going to be active, they'll bring up Kamani. Why wouldn't they, right? I think Kamani's shown in the limited opportunities. I mean, heck, his first touch of the ball in the NFL was a touchdown. So I think he's capable. In fact, that was one hell of a catch, by the way. He caught the back end of the ball and then just sprinted to the end zone. So if JK has to go down, I don't think it's a bad thing to get Kamani in there. I'd love to see more of Kamani and see what he's capable of doing. Not necessarily convinced Gus is the long-term answer. Kamani, it may be JK and Kamani long-term. Of course, we need to re-sign JK too. But I do love the idea of just blowing those guys out and making a statement. That would be sweet, especially on a short week traveling back east after this loss. Couple keys to victory for me on the offensive side. I actually think a balanced attack would serve us well, because they're not good really in either the pass or the run. So keep them off guard versus becoming one-dimensional. And then even if they've got a limited pass rush, they can tee off against our interior line, which we know isn't that good. So at least keep the run, keep them fearing the run. And like you said, Brennan, now that Justin's been healthy, he's been using his legs. And my God, that adds a whole nother dimension to our offense. And so as long as Justin's healthy and capable of doing it, they should have a couple runs per game for Justin, because it makes defenses have to go, oh yeah, we have to keep an eye on this dude because he can burn us for 20 or 30 like that. Another key to the game, and we've been talking about this week in and week out, we need to get better on third down conversions. We need to get those percentages up. We need to sustain drives, which is the other part of it, right? We need to sustain drives. Your best defense is a proficient offense that keeps the opposing offense off the field. We didn't do that good of a job the last couple of weeks, at least late in the game. Turnover battle. I think we've been pretty good with turnovers. I'm not overly concerned of us giving it away, but Kirk Cousins not the most mobile guy in the world. So as we switch to kind of defensive keys of the game, obviously one of the big ones is going to be get after Kirk Cousins, right? We don't have to worry about Kirk doing what Lamar can do. So it's not like, hey, let's keep Kirk in the pocket. We know Kirk's staying in the pocket. So let's turn our boys loose like rabid dogs and go feeding on Kirk Cousins and get him to throw us a couple. That's kind of how I'm thinking, shifting over to defense, is get some mad pressure on him. I think all our guys are healthy. Joey's healthy now. Khalil's back. Obviously Bud and, Thule's doing Thule stuff as a 22-year-old Tasmanian devil. Turn those boys loose on Kirk Cousins and have him throw us a couple, get us a couple extra possessions. And then get off the field on third down defensively. Get off the field on third down. Those are my keys to the game.
Yeah, on the defense side of the ball, the big thing that I'm looking at is I think we match up pretty well in the backfield against them when it comes to like linebackers to running back matchup. Unlike Baltimore with Derek, I think, they got Bijan Robinson, who's an absolute superstar. But I think Deion Henley, that's his game. A little bit more of the play the flats, play the coverage. So I think that he can match up really well and kind of handle him in a good way on the defense side of the ball. It's not going to be so much smash mouth with Bijan. I think they're going to look for him with checkdowns and things like that. And then Kyle Pitts, obviously, Drake London on the other side of the ball. I think we match up all right with these guys. I don't think that necessarily they're going to have these like insane playmaking shots like they had, like the Ravens had against us. So, yeah, I think Dayon's going to be a pretty good matchup for Bijan.
Yeah, if we can get Denzel back, I don't know the extent of Denzel's injury, but they haven't put him on injured reserve like they did a couple other players. Hayden Hurst and who else went on injured reserve last week?
Rice.
Was it Rice?
Well, he's on IR.
Yeah, but no, last week they put him and somebody else, and I'm forgetting who it was.
Was it Simi?
No, that was the week before when Simi hurt his wrist against Sensi, I think. But anyway, Denzel's not on IR, so hopefully it's just get him back. And yeah, Robinson's he was a high first round pick when he came out. He's super talented. We have to pay attention to him. Of course, we can't ignore him. But I would kind of characterize it as play the run as you're getting to the quarterback for our edge rushers, right? Put pressure on Kirk Cousins, but oh, by the way, play the running back on your way to the quarterback. And then you can turn around and after you've done that, let the Henleys and the Perrimans and those guys deal with him if he gets through with the ball in his hands or if he's going out as a check down. But get after Kirk Cousins. The more we get after Kirk, because he's just not mobile, the more it's going to weigh in our favor for sure. Anything else to add on this game?
I will add, I don't know the last couple previous games, but being a current fantasy manager and a sports bettor myself, the Falcons are notorious for not giving Bijan enough carries. So that's one thing we have to put in mind. I'm probably going to butcher his name or say it wrong, but their second string, I'm pretty sure his name is Tyler Algier. Algier. Yep. Yeah. He. It seems like they split it a lot, especially in the second half. They split a lot of those carries, and they don't give Bijan enough of those carries to have those big 100-plus yard games, multiple TD games. Seems like they limit him in certain games. So I don't know if the last couple games it's been like that. I'm going to do some research to see how many carries he's been getting as of recently, but that's what it seemed like earlier on in the season. So we might want to keep an eye on that as well.
If I was the Falcons and I was game planning for us and I just watched what Derrick Henry did, I would try and feed Bijan.
Yeah.
I would try and feed the guy.
That's why I mentioned it.
He gives smantering carries to that change of pace guy like Hill, right? And hope he busts one like Hill did against us. I chuckle, but I kind of mean that in all seriousness. If I was the Atlanta Falcons game planning against us, I would be game planning run first, throw second. And I would try and exploit our defenses. We are not the best, nowhere near it, against the run. We're mediocre at best, and Derrick Henry just exposed us. Now, he's a unique cat. He's a big dude. He's strong. But that being said, if I was them, that's what I'd be looking at. So if I was the Chargers, Jesse Mentor, I'd be like, all right, we need to make sure that we shore that up and we don't let them take advantage of us like we just got kind of taken advantage of, taken out to the woodshed a little bit.
Yeah, they just might do that, but like when I look at the box score against the Broncos, Bijan had a total of 35 rushing yards. They had 50 yards total rushing, and the only place they really seemed to have found success was through the air, through a lot of players. And we know that Kirk does a pretty good job at dishing the ball. So you're right. Come at us running, but I just they certainly are not the Ravens. So I think we'll be able to handle them pretty well.
Yeah, and that might have been because you said the Broncos got up on them, right? So they may have had to have felt like they had
abandoned that.
So that could have played into it. But yeah, they could also be thinking, hey, look, we've got a really good pass rush. They need to slow down our pass rush by running the ball, right, and kind of slowing down the Boses and Max of the world. So this is a game. We talk about this regularly. Any given Sunday, this is a game that we need to be prepared for. We can't take them lightly. These guys, there's some skilled players here who could make us look bad. They could embarrass us if we don't come to play. Should we win the game? I think we should, and we'll get into predictions here shortly. But it's definitely a very winnable game for us, and I'd put the odds very high. Somewhere in the neighborhood of, just picking a number out of the top of my head, I'd probably say 80-20. Roughly win to loss. There's 20% they catch us. Maybe we all have, jet lag or whatever, just don't execute. But, anything else to put on this before we move on? All right, let's talk a little bit about the team and their injuries. The only new injury coming out of this game was JK that I'm aware of, which is not an insignificant injury. I don't know if you guys were paying attention to it. I'm sure you guys were. He tried to come back in the game, and then he went back in the locker room, and they put a brace on his knee. He came back, and he's running on the sidelines with a brace on his knee. And ultimately, I don't know if it's his decision or somebody else's decision, he didn't come back in the game. But he was doing everything he could to come back in the game. So my fingers are crossed that this is more of a tweak or a sprain versus anything else. They probably x-rayed him when he went back in the locker room. So I suspect he at least got an x-ray, which isn't the best on soft tissue, but hopefully it's nothing super major. I've been talking about Denzel coming back. The rest of our guys, Cam Hart. Supposedly he was in a walking boot on the sidelines for the game. He had a concussion and an ankle. I haven't heard if he's officially out of concussion protocol from the previous game. Young kid, he probably should be by now. So odds are probably that we might see Cam back. Don't know anything on Denzel yet, but hopefully we see him back. Bosa, Mack, Fulton, those guys are all back. The only other question mark that I have, and you guys can add anything on the injury or personnel front, but is Asante. I'm not hearing anything that Asante entering his 21-day window, them activating him, even if he's not ready to play yet. I'm not hearing anything on Asante. I mean, nothing on Asante.
Isn't that weird? He should be out of the window, right?
I'm not hearing nothing. And Popper's not even asking about him. Popper's like a nuisance. He's like that dog that bites your friggin' pant leg and won't let go for Harbaugh. Right? He's just the whole press conference, and he hasn't asked anything about Asante. So it's been a few weeks since I've heard anything. I don't know if you guys read anything, seen anything, but I think he's in that window. I think that he's in that time period where they can activate him. So keep an eye on that, because obviously we could use some quality DB help. Other than that, that's all I got as far as personnel goes. Like to see Denzel back. You don't know what you got till it's gone. And with Junior Colson being on IR, having Denzel there in the middle is huge. Real quick, we'll go over the AFC West standings. Chiefs won again. Bastards. Again, it just wasn't a pretty game, but they friggin' pull out a win, man. So the Chiefs are 10-1. We took a loss, so we dropped to 7-4. The Broncos won, so they're 7-5 now. So instead of a game and a half, we're only half a game. And then the Raiders raided. We should start that. That's a new term. Chargering's gone, but raidering now is like in full swing. So the Raiders raided, and they're 2-9. So, and I believe they play Christmas. No, Black Friday. They play Black Friday against the Chiefs. So, just out of curiosity, who are you guys rooting for in that game?
The Raiders.
You're recovering from Turkey.
Raiders.
No, but
Absolutely, right? Is there any question whatsoever?
I can't do it. I'm rooting for nobody.
My parlay.
I can't do it.
I'm full-fledged Raider fan next Friday.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, I could never.
This Friday. Gosh, that's like 3 days away. Yeah, full-fledged. I want to see Max Crosby just sack the living daylights out of Mahomes. Give him a little something at the bottom of the pile, like old days. Yeah. Rough him up enough that he doesn't play the following week, which is a primetime game against who?
Us,
right? So Max Crosby, you have full license to do what you need to do. All right, man. It was not pretty last week. Our predictions were pretty much sucked. I don't know if we necessarily need to revisit them. If you care to revisit them, if this even remotely counts, we were all wrong as far as who was going to win. But if you take the points and add them up, technically speaking, Andrew, I think you were the closest. Or no, actually, I think maybe I was. Nope, you were 34-28. I was 35-28. And the game was 23 us to 30 them. So it's flipped. But anyway, we sucked. It doesn't count. No, nobody gets any kudos this week. Nobody's buying you non-alcoholic beer this week.
Oh, shucks.
So who wants to go first this week against the Falcons?
I'll go first.
All right, you are up.
All right, I feel pretty confident about this matchup. Like I said earlier, I think this is the kind of game that after a loss like the Ravens, this type of football team, the Jim Harbaugh era type football team, is going to come back and make a statement. So,
Get right,
and I've gone back and forth throughout the podcast. I keep changing the opponent's score, the Falcons, but I got the Chargers winning 31-17.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a get right game. I think that if anyone's turning a blind eye to the Chargers, they're going to look back after that last week and go, "Oh, dang, Chargers they just put a statement against the Falcons." I think we're more than capable of putting up 31. That's what I see happening.
All right. I like that. I like that a lot. I'll go ahead and throw mine out there, and then you have two targets to aim at there, Brennan. I think our defense has a lot of pride. Even when they've got backups in, I think they've got a lot of pride in the system. And, I do believe they believe in the next man up philosophy. So I think they felt embarrassed this game. So I'm looking at 28-13. I think both sides of the ball are going to show up. I think our defense is going to get back to doing what they do and not letting these 30-point games occur. They're going to keep this opponent where they should keep them, which is in that, one touchdown and a field goal or two kind of range. So that's the 13. I'll give them 2 field goals. Either that or 2 touchdowns, but one of them they're going to miss the kick. But in our offenses, they should easily put up 28 on these guys. I think that's a pretty safe bet. I feel pretty confident in this one too, and I think Brennan's the most confident of the 3 of us.
Alrighty, so I could be very wrong for this, but if I get this right, I'm a legend. I'm going 35-7 Chargers, complete blowout.
I thought there for a second when you went legendary status that you were at least talking a 40 burger.
No, 35-7 is is what I'm going for. I think that's beyond our expectations, but I'm confident Herbert's gonna have one of those games, and I think, like you guys said, our defense is too much pride. I think that put a bad taste in Jesse Minter's mouth too. 30+ point games and a loss, so that's not really doing it for him. So I think it's going to be a big statement game. I almost said 35-0, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And I'm, like I said, 35-7.
I would love to see our D throw up a goose egg shutout. My goodness, that would be a statement. Regardless of what the O does, putting up a goose egg, that's going to send a message. Because, again, we've talked about this Atlanta game. Kirk Cousins is no slouch. There's a reason he's still playing at this age, having been, what was he, like a 6th-round pick on the same team in the same draft that picked RG3, in the first round, in like the top of the first round. And then they picked this kid, lowly backup way down. And RG3's long out, and Kirk Cousins has had multi-$100-million contracts. So he is no slouch. He knows how to throw the ball. He knows how to deliver it. So a goose egg would be sweet, but 7 would be sweet too. I think that's – I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy at all to think that. I don't think Harbaugh was real happy with the outcome of this game, and not just because it was against his brother. I think he expected a better showing. Even though it was a good showing, I think he expected an even better showing. And so I think they're getting back to work this week. And if I were the Falcons, I'd watch out.
Pack a lunch, dude.
Yeah, because this is a new Chargers fan, and I think everybody in powder blue is not real happy right now. So speaking of powder blues, before we wrap this thing up, I got to say it. I'm sorry. And for all of you guys who are saying it's not the Navy uniforms, you can just kiss it, all right? I don't care if it's the Navy's or not. They don't win in them.
But they're rad.
They're so cool.
Care. They could be pink for all I care. They don't win in them, so get rid of them, okay? I saw all kinds of stuff on Instagram today. Oh, stop complaining about the uniforms. If they got a win in them, I would stop complaining. But you know what? What's the old saying? They said this about guys and women who dress professionally when they go to work. It's how it's part of your performance is how you look. And I know those look sharp, but apparently they don't feel sharp in them because they've yet to get a win. And I do believe it's been 8 games. I believe this was the 8th game, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not sure how you go back and research what games were played in what uniforms, but I thought I had seen a graphic earlier in the week that had showed 7 prior games in those unis. I swear.
It sounds about right.
I could be wrong. So this was the 8th of their existence. They've never won. And in fact, I think that may have been the first year they moved to LA. It was the first year they had those, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think this would be the 8th season, if I'm not mistaken. I have to double check that, but it's like 7 or 8. So get rid of them, man. Just get rid of them. I think I had a genius idea. Go with the Navy helmet, keep the Navy jersey, and go with the white pants. And now your mid-90s Charger throwback, maybe not exactly, because these are pretty sharp unis. I'll grant that. So don't replicate the mid-90s, but go back to where it's got that vibe of the mid-90s. Hey, man, we had Junior Seau, Stan Humphries, LaDainian Tomlinson was wearing those jerseys for a while, Antonio Gates. We went to a Super Bowl in those jerseys. How about going to that Navy uni? Okay, maybe call that our new throwback. Maybe be cool. I don't know if you guys even want to chime in on that, but since we're talking about uniforms, it's like, just get rid of them.
It's hard to argue against that.
So cool. They're so cool.
They're super cool.
They look.
We're due for a new helmet or a new uniform, so maybe something's on the way.
John Spanos, I know you're the one who probably controls that, dude. Make it happen, brother. Those are so sweet looking unis, but they look like you should dominate in them, right? I mean, they got that Darth Vader-y, just kind of, they look like you should. We don't dominate in those. We haven't won a single game. So change something up. Just saying, if it doesn't work, change it up. And I was going in with this, even though you mentioned it last pod, Andrew, I'm like, open mind. It's the Harbaugh era. Harbaugh's going to change this, okay? If it's going to change, Jim's going to change it, and we will start winning with the Navies. Just get it. It's my 2 cents. It's my 2 cents. The powder blues are still the sweetest uniforms in pro sports, period. Any last comments before we wrap this thing up, gentlemen? All right, I think we've covered it. Let me just say before we wrap this up, I appreciate you guys immensely. I really do. Love hanging out with you guys once a week, talking ball for hour and a half. Sometimes behind the scenes, before or after the pod, kind of turns into 2 hours. Appreciate it a ton. Appreciate you guys being here, sharing with the fans. It's totally awesome. So thank you. Thank you a ton.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm absolutely thrilled that you guys want to come hang out with me. So I didn't have too many friends growing up. No, I'm just teasing. No, I had one or two. Just messing with you guys. But hey, man, that's it for this episode of Chargers Cast. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Really do. Go down below, do the whole comment thing, all that good stuff. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe. All that good stuff. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your comments. Love to hear your feedback. What do you guys think about the Navy uniforms? All right. Most important thing in Charger sports is the uniform color, right? But no, feel free to give any feedback you guys want. Like I tell you guys all the time, it's for fans, by fans. I'm a fan. Brennan's a fan. Andrew's a fan. We're diehard fans. We love nothing more than sitting here talking about our Chargers. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Give us any feedback you guys got as well, because your feedback is just as valid as ours. So with that, let's wrap it up. Despite taking our 4th loss, gentlemen, who's got it better than us?
Nobody.
Nobody, baby. All right. I will see you guys next week with a W.
That's right.
All right, man. Hi, I'm Kirk Brewer, the creator and host of ChargersCast. I just wanted to say thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of ChargersCast. We really appreciate you engaging with the podcast. When I created ChargersCast, it was intended to be a podcast about everything Los Angeles Chargers from a fan perspective. It's by fans and for fans. So it's for you, and we really appreciate you being here. If you haven't done so already, please go down below, leave a comment, give us some feedback. We really love to hear from you. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and click the little bell so that you get notifications when new content drops. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to ChargersCast. And who's got it better than us? Nobody.